Hi guys, we're with the band 7th Time Down. So excited to have you guys here. 7th Time Down, that's the name of your band. What does it mean?
Well, gosh.
Who's up?
Go ahead.
Me? All right, I'll take a stab at it here. If I get it wrong, just remind me. Okay?
All right, you got this.
Yeah, 17 years. It's like I forgot where we came up with. Old Testament. People read that in Canada, I'm assuming.
Still.
America, it's like, maybe not. Old Testament, 2 Kings chapter 5. It's about Naaman. He had leprosy, and his prophet said, hey, the Lord will heal you of this. All you got to do is go to the river and take a bath. You guessed it, 7 times. And on his 7th time down, he came up clean. But the thing is a story of obedience, right? He did not want to go. He was a king. He had a castle. The Lord wants to heal me. You come do it on my terms, which we've all been there, right? God is promising you something. God is prompting you to do something. He's asking for obedience. You know, that's that kind of thing. And we say, well, we'll do it this way because my way is safer. I trust my way. And eventually, you know, the prophet keeps telling him, if you would just trust, if you would just trust, if you would just go to do God's plan, then everything's going to be fine. And he did. He humbled himself, and he went to that dirty river, you know, and took a bath 7 times and was healed. And it's, again, how many times in my life have I learned that lesson? Still learning it. But it's an amazing lesson, and it's one that I'm always excited to share the band name, you know.
This is so strange for me because I know a lot of the people that you know, but this was the first time I got to really dive into your discography. So I actually went back and listened to a whole bunch of your records, and it was really cool. This one's a little bit more electronic, kind of influenced programmed drums, a lot of synths. What kind of led to that discovery of new instrumentation and stuff?
Well, so for years we had a 4th member of the band, Eric Van Zant. He was a guitar player that grew up in Kentucky with us. A couple years ago, he decided God was leading him in a different direction, and now he's out, you know, doing his own music and doing a fantastic job and very guitar-driven music. And so, you know, when you lose a guitar player, you're going to make a new album. You're trying to figure out, you know, not just a guitar player, somebody you have, you know, built an identity of a sound with for however many years we've been doing this. And, you know, now part of that's gone, so now what do we sound like? And I think, you know, for me, it's interesting you say programmed drums. And a lot of people say that. I don't hear it. No, I'm teasing. All those drums are layered with Austin.
Okay.
So basically what we did is we found samples that like inspired us, right? And we would live with those for the weeks as we were like, you know, writing these songs and building these tracks. And then kind of that, really the final piece of the puzzle was Austin going into a studio on a drum kit and figuring out where that fit with the samples that we had been using. So, I mean, that was a big part of wrapping up the record was like, now we get drums on the record. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's honestly like so much instrumentation on this record, interestingly enough.
It's true.
It's just added with, it kind of felt like a big undertaking at times because there's a lot of real estate taken up by sounds that we had never used before.
Right.
You know, like he was saying, inspiring, literally for 10, however many years, most of the songs we'd write would be, we're sitting down, chatting, sipping some water or coffee or whatever, and then we have a conversation about life, somebody grabs a guitar, and then a song happens.
Sure.
This was the first record where we're like, I'll be sitting around just hitting one note on a keyboard and Mikey's cycling through sounds or something like that, and all of a sudden you hear a sound and you're like, that's really cool. And then you start building a song around it.
And also, like, if people who know the background of the band would know that, like, I produce and program, Austin's a producer and program, Cliff is just a creative machine in general. So, like a lot of this record started on the tour bus. It started backstage on tour in the dressing room with laptops and, you know, and hard drives and, you know, cell phones.
Voice notes
absolutely.
on cell phones back and forth.
Yeah, a lot of that for sure. And, you know, emailing back and forth, and Austin living in Texas, you know, and me sending him a track and him sending back, you know, his take on what I was doing in my basement, like what he was doing in his basement.
It is,
you know,
it is always amazing. You have an idea, you send it out to the guys you work with, and they come back with something like that blows your mind.
Yeah.
You're like,
Didn't even hear that.
wow,
Yeah.
like how did that happen?
It was interesting for me too because normally drums are like the first thing we would do. I'd play to like a scratch track that wasn't even very formulated at that point.
Yeah.
So now to play on this album, basically at the very end when everything's almost all the way done, it was new territory.
Yeah, territory, but fun.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was a lot of
it
fun.
was really fun because songs that I had gotten used to the groove of, just living with this like grids and clicks and all this for months, having him come in and just these little inflections on hi-hats or snares or backbeats of a kick drum or whatever. It's like, oh, that's a whole new groove, so it was awesome. I loved making this record. It was a treat.
The name of the record is
Brand New Day.
Brand New Day. And we'll be hearing a few tracks from that as you play live. I wanted to make sure that people knew. So you have a track though that we heard in Canada it was on the charts for like forever, like 52 weeks or something like that. What was that
Just
called?
Say Jesus?
Just Say Jesus.
We'll be playing that one today. We're not going to play all new music. We're going to kind of do a timeline for sure.
What an incredible journey. I mean, for a song to be on the charts for that long is really incredible. It's a feat.
It's one we wrote with Ian, actually, you were talking about. Like that song is super meaningful to us because it came at a time where we were doing way more shows. We actively decided to do less shows because we're in a point where families are growing and all this kind of stuff. We wanted to be home more. So instead of doing 100+ shows a year, we're trying to do 60 shows a year or whatever.
Now we slowed down.
But back then, the first year of my firstborn's life, we did 183 shows. I saw him walking for the first time on video, like a phone video. So at that time, I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep doing that. And Just Say Jesus was at the same time. And so what helped us was so many people saying that song carried them through this big ordeal or this whatever. And it's just, God knew what he was doing, you know what I'm saying? Like he knew that was going to be difficult for us to be on the road and do that. And he knew what we needed, the fuel we needed to keep going. And that song was a huge part of that.
Amazing. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Super great to have you.
Yeah.
So Mikey Howard from 7th Time Down.
Yep, I believe so.
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for letting me stay back.
Yeah. We want to make sure that that when we have guests on, that we offer the opportunity for them to talk about how God has impacted their lives. You obviously are in a Christian band. You're working your tails off to make sure the gospel gets out there.
Yeah.
Could you share with us some of the challenges that you've had as you've gone out and ministered? What are some of the things that you're dealing with, kind of just as a believer?
I think I'm 35. I've got 2 daughters and 1 on the way. And I have learned that in the good seasons, that it's really easy to believe what I'm singing every single night. And I have been through times in my life, bad seasons, valleys, bad days, if you will. And that's when it gets tough to get on stage during those moments and, share this gospel with people, as good news, and you're excited, and you want to convey this like message of hope to people, but like you're struggling in these dark moments, to grab a hold of those shreds of hope or light or whatever, And I've learned in those moments that's probably when Jesus is like pursuing me most. That's when he's like, trying to remind me like, hey man, I'm relentless in my pursuit of you. Like even though the world's coming for you, like I promise I want you more. I love you more. And my wife and I, last fall, we experienced a miscarriage. And I was on the bus about 6 a.m. or something, and my wife calls and she's in tears. And we hadn't even told like my parents or the band, that we were, having a baby or anything. We were just kind of keeping it. It was kind of an exciting time, us and our kids knew, and that, pretty much it. Wow. And I got the call, and she's crying, says something's wrong, and I'm, well, what's wrong? She's like, well, something's wrong with the baby. I've got to go to the doctor. I'm like, well, go and call me, as soon as you know something. And, that afternoon, what we feared the most had come to pass. We lost the baby. And, I had a show that night, and I'm telling my wife, we're broken heart. We did not see it coming, and we had 2 healthy pregnancies. Everything was great. And this was truly felt like a sucker punch. I just didn't see it coming. And, I had a job to do that night, but I also wanted to be home with my wife, and my wife's a tough cookie. She's a tough cookie. And I remember her saying, you know, you got to go tell people that God's still good. You know, that was her heart on the matter. You know, God's still good. And,
Wow.
And you know, I remember praying with my friends. You know, I was excited to share with them this new life, and then all of a sudden I had to tell them, you know, hey, what I was excited to share with you. I'm brokenhearted to share this with you. And they gathered around me on stage, and we prayed, and I made a decision to get up on stage that night. And I just remember the Lord asking me in those moments, like, do you trust me? Do you believe these songs that you're singing every night? Do you trust me? And man, right there in that moment, I'm not sure that I did. But through prayers of friends and the strength of my wife and prayers of family, you know, I was able to get up on stage and share the story. And man, hands started going up all over the crowd, and people saying, "Can we pray for you right now? Can we pray for your wife right now?" And you know, this is news. This wound was fresh, you know, and that night, just seeing like dozens of people experience healing through my heartache, it was life changing. You know, it really was. So. Yeah, that's all I got for you on that.
Well, Michelle and I had a lot of trouble at first trying to have kids.
Yeah.
So we were pretty sure for a long time we weren't going to have any. So it was a real miracle to kind of get through that for us, for sure. So I feel for you, and I'm praying for you. And
hey, God keeps His promises, though. We do have another baby on the way. As a matter of fact, I should leave now, just in case. You know? Dude, thanks for asking the question. I mean, that's a tough question to answer, but I appreciate the opportunity to share.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.